Hello everyone and welcome back to the only series out there that combines the story of Magic the Gathering with the physical cards you can win. I'm Simon and this is Friday Night Lore. For this week's FNL, let's focus again on the story unfolding in Oath of the Gatewatch. Previously, the heroes of Zendikar, Gideon and Kiora, Jace Belleron, Nissa and Chandra all swore oaths to protect not only this plane from the Eldrazi, but to protect the entire multiverse from any threat too great for any one planeswalker to deal with on their own. This cemented the formation of the Gatewatch, a group of planeswalkers burdened with protecting any plane in the multiverse that is besieged by evil, tyranny, and injustice. Unfortunately for them, their work had already started here on Zendikar. They still have to deal with the world-shattering Eldrazi. Their first attempt at capturing one of the Eldrazi titans, Ulamog, was foiled by the demonic planeswalker Obnixilis. Using their Hedron prison to harness energy from the plane, he reignited his dormant planeswalker Spark. With his ascension in power, Obby called forth another sleeping titan just below the plane's crust, Kozilek. With both their bindings shattered, Zendikar now faces the combined destructive force of Ulamog and Kozilek. The newly formed Gatewatch, who had just survived a near-fatal encounter with Obnixilis, must now devise a plan to capture or in some way destroy two titans instead of one, as if one wasn't more than enough trouble. The group turns to their master of puzzles for answers, hoping the mind mage Jace Belleron can conjure up a plan B, C, and D. Jace is known for having backups to his backups, but with his limited knowledge on the nature of the Eldrazi, the Hedron prison which failed was his only good plan. While the group needed some kind of direction, Jace himself was searching for answers in his own memory. Most everything he knew about these monsters came from his encounter with the spirit dragon Ugin, who himself studied the colorless creatures for centuries. Ugin was certain that killing the Eldrazi avatars on Zendikar would do nothing to the greater being which dwelled in the Blind Eternities. Pinning them to the plane was the best course of action. Only problem was that the Eldrazi had been captured before, and look how great that turned out. Not to mention, they used up all of their easily accessible Hedrons. These are the objects used to direct the plane's mana ley lines to form prisons. To use the Hedrons again would just take too long to be practical. But then again, killing the avatars or attacking them enough would simply cause them to retreat to the Blind Eternities, freeing them to terrorize more worlds. Again, Jace returned to Ugin's analogy of the Eldrazi. They were like a man fishing for supper. The man bends down and places his hand into the water. The fish only see the hand, blind to the man controlling it. This man was the Eldrazi. What we see on Zendikar is only the hand of the true Eldrazi, the bulk of which resides still in the Blind Eternities. If you cut off the hand, the man walks free, but if you pin it to the sea floor, the man is unable to escape. Only problem was, Zendikar had run out of things to pin him with. How can they stop the Eldrazi without simply killing their avatars or without pinning them in place? Suddenly, Jace was struck by an ingenious, if not terrifying idea. If killing the hand of the man fishing would do nothing, then they would simply have to kill the man. But in this analogy, our heroes are simply just fish. How can they kill a man on dry land? Well, you drag that man into the water. This was Jace's plan. They would have to force the greater forms of the Eldrazi into the reality that is Zendikar. Then and only then could they kill the real titans. As the mind mage described his plan to his fellow planeswalkers, they stood in disbelief. It sounded so impossible that many felt it couldn't be done. The attention then fell to Nissa, the elf native who had a spiritual connection with the plane's mana. In her mind, she believed it was possible to form a network of ley lines without using Hedrons to keep them in place, but this would be extremely stressful on both her and the world. She didn't know just how long she could keep the glyph intact. Using telepathy, Jace saw what Nissa envisioned. It seemed plausible. Using the ley lines to form a glyph, they could use the power of Zendikar, the entire plane, to drag the true titans from the Blind Eternities. Once in their reality, the glyph will act as a guillotine as well as a prison, dragging the Eldrazi in and consuming their forms. With enough power and sustainability, Zendikar could absorb the Eldrazi, ending their terrorizing reign. This plan was going to be complex and difficult to pull off. They would need everyone working at full capacity if they wanted to pull it off. They needed to act quickly, so after regrouping with the others, including Tazri, Drana, Jorien, Kiora, Noyandar, and Munda, the Gatewatch set the plan into motion. First, they needed to direct the two titans to a location where they could cast the giant glyph meant to bind them. We already know the Eldrazi are attracted to areas of immense life, so Gideon and his army would have to, bait the titans into converging on a single point. Most of Gideon's army at this point were either dead or missing. Those that remained did so out of their respect for their leaders, Gideon, Tazri, and Drana. Hope was fleeting, but this plan gave them the best chance to end the Eldrazi once and for all. If this meant acting as bait and perhaps giving up their lives, then many were more than willing to make that sacrifice. Kiora was a different story. The powerful merfolk planeswalker had once defied their orders and strayed from their plan, costing their first attempt at imprisonment dearly. Even with the bident of a god from another world, Kiora wasn't strong enough to take the Titans on herself. She discovered this firsthand when Kozilek bested her and her sea monsters, throwing her near-dead body into the sea. This time around, however, Kiora agreed to follow the plan as the others described it. Her job would be to protect Nissa as she cast the spell, using the nearby sea to wash away any Eldrazi spawn who tried to interrupt. Everyone now understands their role and what's at stake. This is their last attempt, the final hope for Zendikar. Should this fail, the world would be doomed. With that solemn fact made clear, the Gatewatch prepared for the final fight against the Eldrazi. Their plan moved quicker than expected. Without delay, the Zendikari forces were in position and sounds of the Titans marching towards them became clear. Kozilek and Ulamog had sensed the great abundance of life and were moving in their direction. All according to plan, the Titans had taken the bait. Nissa and Jace were standing on the edge of a cliff which overlooked the ravine where Gideon's army took position. It was the perfect place to form the glyph. Chandra stood by, hands and fire ablaze, as if she was ready to take the fight to the Titans herself. Luckily for everyone else, the Pyromancer managed to control herself. Gideon was off doing his own thing, rallying his forces who again faced imminent death. Their orders were to bait the Titans in and retreat once they were in position. From then on, it was just a matter of protecting Nissa from their spawn. Kiora looked out from the sea wall, skeptical at the plan, but in position nonetheless. Everything was set. The Titans were upon them, the forces scattered and Nissa pulled on the ley lines of Zendikar. Without the Hedrons to guide these streams of mana, it was difficult to bring them together, but through her will, Nissa was able to form the glyph. The ley lines wrapped around the Eldrazi as if they were vines of pure mana. Kozilek and Ulamog surged in defiance, thrusting and heaving in a mad attempt to escape their confinement. Everyone looked on in horror as each lunge loosened the ley lines further. They feared the lines would snap, but as the giants grew into the air, the vines snapped back and became taut, leashing the monsters firmly to the ground. The glyph wasn't done yet, however. It was time to drag the man into the water. With great effort and strain, Nissa willed the world to pool. The sky darkened and the weather became unsettling, as if a storm had formed out of nowhere. Yet this was no mere thunderstorm. Kiora and the other planeswalkers understood this was the true Eldrazi entering their world. The sky above them changed to hues of dark magenta and crackled with energy. It was as if the Eldrazi Titans had consumed the entire sky. No, not consumed it, became it. The entire world around them became the Eldrazi. This was the mass of the true Titans, their physical forms, unnatural forms of space, time, and nothingness. With their appearance all around them, the sky opened up, and it rained Eldrazi. The spawn came out of nowhere, and in numbers larger than any had ever seen before. Gideon and his men knew their jobs and defended Nissa. Kiora and Chandra played their parts as well, willing fire and water to scorch and wash away bands of spawn brazen enough to approach Nissa. Jace continued as he always had, orchestrating the entire assault. As the Eldrazi grew and encompassed even more of the horizon, their forms began to morph. They were basically a combined, unrecognizable mass of colors and tentacles, each of which spawned even more Eldrazi in their defense. The attack was taking longer than expected, much longer. Zendikar was having trouble holding the true forms of the Eldrazi, and Nissa was becoming exhausted. Zendikar and the Eldrazi were in a life-or-death tug-of-war, with each trying to feed off the other. Only problem was, the Eldrazi were designed to consume worlds. They were winning. The earth shattered and split around them. It was clear that Zendikar couldn't take much more of this. Chandra pleaded with Jace to let her blast the Titans with her fire, burn them now while they're weakened. The Mind Mage refused to listen. They needed to follow through. Any attack on the Titans could interrupt the spell and cause them to flee. Kiora herself began to question the plan. She watched as the floating rock islands iconic to her home fell from the sky. She knew Zendikar was losing. This couldn't be the end. The merfolk wouldn't allow her world to die because the others were willing to sacrifice it. If they kept the Titans on Zendikar, it would break. It was time to set them free. Kiora pleaded with Jace and Nissa. Let the Titans go. Zendikar would die if they continued. Let them go now and they'll leave. They could fight them again another day. But again, Jace wanted to stick to the plan. It was now or never. The Eldrazi must be stopped. Everyone agreed, and Nissa continued dragging the Titans down, but the world was feeling this great pressure. Kiora was done watching others decide the fate of her home. She decided to stop this once and for all. Using her godly bident, she willed the entire mass of the ocean into a single orb. The weight of an ocean used as a projectile. Her target? Nissa Ravane. If the elf wasn't going to stop her spell, then she would force her to stop. One way or another, the Eldrazi will leave Zendikar. As Kiora hurled the power of the ocean towards Nissa, Jace stepped between them. Using his own brand of magic, he shattered the orb of water into several sections, causing the waves to crash harmlessly away from Nissa. Kiora looked out in shock and disbelief. She had, in her eyes, failed to save her world. The forms of the Eldrazi began to crack. They were at their weakest point, but still, Zendikar grew more fragile. Chandra again pleaded to Jace. He feared that if she wasn't able to kill the Titans in a single spell, then they would be forced free from the glyph. But time was running short and a decision had to be made. Gideon voiced his own opinion. It was time to attack the Titans head on. Trust in Nissa and Chandra. Together, they can bring these monsters down. With Gideon's confidence, Jace agreed and set loose Chandra's fiery torrent. As soon as her blasts hit the Titans, she knew something was wrong. Even with all her power focused into one sustained blast, it still barely scratched the Eldrazi. Chandra couldn't keep it up much longer, and neither could Nissa. At this rate, they would escape. But then Chandra felt the gentle grasp of a hand on her shoulder. It was Nissa's. She had abandoned her spell and instead focused the power of the ley lines into Chandra. The Pyromancer wouldn't be able to keep the ley lines for as long as Nissa had, but she could use this power for another purpose, one more suitable for her talents. The power of an entire world was at her disposal. With this newfound mana, Chandra exploded with white-hot flames and seared the Titans in the sky. All of Zendikar stood still in the shriek of the burning Eldrazi, and with an explosion which rivaled the glare of the sun, the world vanished in light. As the dust settled, Kiora was the first to regain consciousness. Zendikar was still, as if life had been completely taken from it. There were no signs of the Eldrazi, and a fine dust covered everything in sight. She didn't dare let herself hope. She walked across what had been the battlefield, finding a body in the dust. It was the Pyromancer, Chandra. Kiora helped her up, and together they looked towards the sky. Among the clouds of ash were the faces of the Eldrazi Titans. No longer there, but rather seared into the sky as if it were imprinted there from the fire. It was really true. At last, Ulamog and Kozilek had been defeated. Slowly, others began to turn up. Gideon, Jace, Nissa, Norin, Drana, Tazri, Munda, all amazed at what had just happened. None of them, nor those in the Zendikari army, cheered. The victory came at a great price, and just now did any of them finally feel some relief. It was over. The Gatewatch turned to Kiora, who had just betrayed them again. None were angry, all knew why she did it, and in the wake of their victory, no one had the energy to argue. Kiora placed her bident on her back and walked away. And that's it, guys, the final word of Kozilek and Ulamog. Two titans designed to consume planes, destroyed by a band of planeswalkers and a group of citizens desperate to save their world. While many mysteries still exist about the nature of the Eldrazi, including one titan still on the loose, Emrakul, we can say for certain that they can ultimately be defeated. As we close up the story of Zendikar and our first trial of the Gatewatch, we step forward into the unknown world of Shadows over Innistrad. As the story transitions, I want to know what you guys think will happen in SOI. What do you think causes Jace to go to Innistrad? Let me know in the comments below. And that's gonna do it for this video, guys. But before we end, it's time to unveil the giveaway card of the week. As with all my Friday Night Lore episodes, each week you'll have a chance to win a card, or in this week's case, cards. In order to properly celebrate this monumental feat, for this FNL, I've decided to give away a copy of Kozilek, Butcher of Truth, Ulamog the Infinite Gyre, and Fall of the Titans. I'm giving away these Titans cards from the original Zendikar block to pay homage to these fallen baddies of MTG. Rest in peace, you Eldrazi. You'll be sorely missed, except in Modern. Remember, to enter for your chance to win, all you have to do is sub to the channel and leave a comment on this video. As for last week's FNL, the winner of the Kozilek the Great Distortion card is Sam Wakefield. Congrats on winning FNL and the new card. Check your messages on YouTube or contact me on the back end of my channel. And that's where I'm going to end this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, consider throwing it a like, sharing it, and subbing to the channel. It goes a long way in supporting future content. You can also support this channel by becoming a patron and finding me on other social media outlets. Find links to those in the description below. Friday Night Lore and all my giveaways are brought to you directly by abugames.com. abugames.com is a leading online store for all things MTG. They're amazing and I really suggest you guys checking them out. In any case, I want to thank you all for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.